It's my honor and joy to be able to open this tribute to Clyde as we celebrate his almost 50-year career in the dairy industry and on behalf of Dairylea and its members. We had over 40 people videotaped, more than we anticipated when we began, but when people heard about the project, they wanted to volunteer or in some cases even insist that they be allowed to say some things. And when you get done with about 15 to 20 hours of tape, not everyone can make the final cut, and so we hope everyone understands that. But Clyde and Jeanette will get a copy of the whole thing, and you will have your opportunity to be heard. I guess the one thing I'd say right at the very beginning, the one theme, the constant theme you're going to hear about is about Clyde's tireless efforts and his single-mindedness of purpose on behalf of dairy farmers and certainly on behalf of Dairylea members. Clyde didn't anticipate when he got into dairying being involved the way he has been. In fact, the legend has it, and when I first heard about it, it was a lot closer to the point in time. Clyde, when he first ran for the chairmanship of Dairylea, said he was going to do it for 1 year and then go back to the farm. Well, as all of you know, listening to this, that was over 30 years ago, so I think now he's about ready to honor his commitment to Jeanette to go back to the farm, so to speak. So anyway, with no further ado, we'll get started, and I expect you will hear from me once or twice more before we're done.
I mean, to me, Clyde has been Mr. Dairylea in a lot of ways, and he's from my perspective, he's always had a heart for the farmer and what is good for the farmer.
Dairylea and Clyde have become synonymous. It is really hard to separate Clyde and Dairylea. They're so permanently almost intertwined.
He's dedicated his life to Dairylea. I think the co-op reflects the man. I really do.
He stands for the pride of the industry and the wholesome values of the industry, the utmost honesty and integrity, and a very, very strong leader.
Clyde had an aura about him that just, that he was a leader. And, it's like E.F. Hutton, when he talked, you listened.
It isn't just about Dairylea on its own or just about Clyde or anything like that. It's what's right for the industry. How can we move the industry further ahead?
I can tell you that when you drive with someone for many miles, many hours, all day and night, you really get to know them, get to know where their heart is. And I can tell you that his heart is for the betterment of all dairymen and for the dairy industry.
A couple of times I called him different times, wanting to do something on a Sunday night. He was the barn milking, but he could always stop and take time and answer your questions.
Well, I think Clyde's legacy is one of farmers first. It was never about what was good for Clyde personally, it was about what was good for farmers.
Clyde's leadership is it's always been there. He's always right on track with the putting the dairy industry where it needs to be in the future. He's got a great vision and a great passion for what he does, and he's always got the best interests of dairy farmers at heart.
Well, Clyde's impact on the dairy industry is almost hard to measure because he brings such a statesmanship to the dairy industry. He's been a gentleman, he's been a mentor, he has been a philosopher, and he's been a leader.
Clyde's purpose of what he felt he was elected for was to make sure that Dairylea and the members of Dairylea achieved all that was achievable.
Clyde is Dairylea.
What he has done for the dairy industry be very, very hard to duplicate. And the sincerity and the commitment that he had, I think, is really to be admired.
Dairylea wouldn't exist today if it hadn't been for Clyde. End of conversation. I believe that his farsightedness at that time in the late 70s and early 80s is what made Dairylea survive.
In the early 70s, Dairylea really started to hit the skids. I can remember Clyde telling me a story about how he went to a member meeting and they were showing the financials. And the reserve at the bottom of the balance sheet, the reserve had brackets around it. And somebody asked a question, what do the brackets mean? And the answer was, that's just accounting. And it was sometime after that where Clyde started to get involved. He got hit with a lot in a very short period of time. He ultimately went on the board, was soon, I think in the first year, got elected treasurer, and that's when the assessment hit. And when people hear the assessment, I'm not sure everyone understands what that was, but Dairylea was out of cash. And so what they had to do was withhold a milk check from the members in order to just continue in business. And as you might imagine, the members went ballistic. And ultimately, Dairylea had to settle for half a milk check. So you can imagine where that led things. They needed a whole milk check. Because members went ballistic, they only took half of a milk check. So they didn't fix the problem. They still had a broken business, and they had ticked off all the members. That's when Clyde got involved. 4 years later, he was chairman. And the legacy of the assessment was still with Dairylea. Dairylea was still not really dealing with the root of its problems, and it had to go through what's affectionately known as the recapitalization, where it tried to convert debt into equity. Again, it was about half successful, which means the problem didn't get fixed and the business was broken. 1982, Dairylea hit rock bottom, new management team, and we went back to putting things together under Clyde's leadership.
Our task was to get rid of $86 million of equity that was just a big cross over our backs.
If it wasn't for Clyde, I'd have left Dairylea back in the early 80s. Those were terribly hard financial times for Dairylea. I had taken on a tremendous amount of debt on a new farm, and all of a sudden we got hit with a deduct of 86 cents a hundred, and it was not in my budget. And I threatened to sell the cows, and Clyde encouraged me to keep the cows, and that the capital gains tax that I would have to pay would be far greater than what the deduct would be for the next year.
The money wasn't there for the farms, but it wasn't there for the organization either.
We ran this co-op in smoke and mirrors, and we were like a three-legged milk stool with one leg. He says, somebody giving us a good kick, we'd have gone away.
When I was at Farm Credit, they were a lender to Dairylea. I can distinctly remember being in loan committee one day where the Dairylea credit came in for discussion amongst the various loan officers. They presented the loan, and some people said we need to help these folks because Clyde Rutherford, Rick Smith, and Bobby Hall are doing a great job trying to turn the company around. We just need to give them a little time to do it. Ultimately, the bank stuck by Dairylea, and it allowed Rick and Clyde and Bobby Hall and the rest of the crew to get through that rough patch where they were closing down the plant operations.
In the 80s, we had to make a lot of tough decisions in fixing the co-op. And we could not have succeeded without the loyalty and support of the members. It's true in any cooperative that the strongest asset that the organization has is the membership. But it's especially true with Dairylea because based on performance, no one in their right mind would have stuck with Dairylea through the 70s and the 80s. It had to be in their heart. And the one foundational thing that members could look at, the rock in everything, was Clyde. The members trusted Clyde, trusted his commitment to them and to the organization, and that gave us the time to do the things you need to do to bring stability and ultimately success, value, profitability.
When Dairylea sold off their plants, it was an absolute economic necessity that we do that. It was the very basis of our survival.
Dairylea was certainly losing members and experiencing some losses. It took a some loyal members, but some very strong leadership and some decisive actions from Clyde to kind of turn things around.
I think he conveyed the feeling that I believe we can do this, folks. And if you follow me, if you follow our plan, I think we can come out of this. And I thought that took a lot of courage. Most of the people did follow him.
And he was confronted with all the challenges that existed within Dairylea. He obviously, along with others, I'm sure, took a look. And they remolded Dairylea and pulled it through some absolutely unbelievable trying financial times and set it on a course where it essentially became the envy of other cooperatives in the Northeast.
It's a tribute to Clyde that Dairylea has not only survived but thrived. He's able to see the pictures and see how things are developing and have an understanding of what needs to be done to steer things so that it comes out right.
Dairylea was in a lot of trouble back then. It just took an enormous amount of leadership and commitment, and that's what Clyde gave us. And his drive, it motivated and inspired those of us that were fortunate enough to work for him. Not just the members who hung in there as he went out and spoke and said we're going to fix it, but his inability to give up. Just an inability to give up. He was going to take everything that was wrong and he was going to fix it. And that is exactly what he did.
A lot of the changes that we've seen in the industry with cooperatives working together and coming together and forming new alliances and also some merging of different cooperatives and in the manufacturing chain for efficiency purposes has really benefited the industry, and it's been outside of the box thinking. Some of these things people felt couldn't be done, but Clyde was able to get it done.
Clyde's overall legacy is going to be the idea that farmers, when working together, can achieve a better outcome. If you look at what Clyde has done throughout the years, whether it's Dairylea, the Northeast industry, whether it's the roles he's played on the national stage, it's been about bringing farmers together to create a better outcome for the dairy farmer.
I think one of the real strengths that Clyde has had is getting people to sit down and talk and see what they've got in common to make things better for farms and for the members.
When dairy farmers work together, everybody does better. That's been what Clyde has focused his entire career on. Because long before dairy marketing services and farmers working together on the broader scale that they are today, there was Clyde Rutherford and Dairylea, and they were doing that. Cortland Bulk, Canisius, collaborative efforts between those organizations, led by Clyde in many cases, resulted in efficiencies that benefited farmers.
Working with Clyde in the boardroom, as you know, we have many joint board meetings between DFA Northeast and Dairylea, and it just helps bring the industry, the Northeast, farmers together. And whenever farmers come together, we obviously benefit. And that's one of the things that Clyde is so great at, is facilitating and bringing groups, bringing farmers together, bringing people together that can impact our industry to help our farmers.
Rick and Clyde and I sat down and talked, and we decided that if we're going to work together, form DMS, work together as two co-ops, then we ought to just include each other at all of our activities. And I think pretty much since then we laid the groundwork of where we are today.
When we formed DMS years ago, the whole premise that Clyde laid out in his legacy and his gift to the industry of farmers working together was the premise that brought DMS together. How can we take farmer units and align them, put them together to create a better, more meaningful outcome for the farmer?
I remember as we created DMS, thinking it's just a great idea because it enabled farmers to market their milk through somewhat of a structure that did not exist before. And they did not have to be in some cases, a co-op member in order to take advantage of this milk marketing relationship.
The farm community has benefited greatly from the emphasis on marketing, services, and the recognition that being a member of a co-op involves, or can involve, a lot more benefits than just simply getting the milk picked up at the farm and delivered to the milk plant.
Took the cooperative just from a struggling financial organization that was based on manufacturing and plants to what we have now is really a streamlined organization that focuses on milk and what's important to members. We've developed the services and so forth that are a profitable part of the organization, and it just brought in a wonderful group of people on the management team. He's helped bring that along.
In Clyde's first 5 years as president chairman of Dairylea, there were 5 CEOs. 5 CEOs in 5 years. Now, one died. Clyde had nothing to do with that. A couple of attempts at hitting home runs didn't work. And that's when Clyde convinced Bobby Hall to take over. And Bobby was no nonsense, was not into gimmicks, was very candid and open with the members who were not used to that. Bobby recruited a young group of managers, of which I was one. I think the reason he had young people working for him was the older people were too smart and didn't want to get too close to it.
Clyde realized that the dairy industry was changing, and he was instrumental in seeing that we needed to bring in other people and convincing the board to bring in other people too. And consequently, when you bring in top people, they bring in top people. So people like Bob Hall, Rick Smith, Greg Wickham, I think Clyde is highly responsible for bringing that in.
He was clever enough to surround himself with good people. And I discovered years ago, whether you're a co-op board or a co-op CEO, it's key to surround yourself with key people.
Of course, he put Rick Smith on too, so that made a big, with the two of them working together, Clyde and Rick are quite a team.
And I teamed up with Bob Hall, and they turned the organization around.
Well, I think Clyde as a leader was, he's tremendous. He did a wonderful job. He hired the right people to make the right moves and got us where we're at.
In my 31 years in the dairy industry, Clyde Rutherford has been the only leader we've had here in Dairylea. I haven't seen anybody in the 31 years as a farmer leader that would really compare to him. He's been that impactful on me as a person and as a dairy farmer, but as I see the dairy industry, especially here in the Northeast, there's no one even close to what he has done for our industry here.
It's been great working for Clyde. Clyde has a way of inspiring the management team, inspiring those around him to do the right thing on behalf of farmers. If there's one thing about Clyde, he's been absolutely farmer-driven for a number of years. He puts the farmer first, and he encourages all of us around him to be thinking in the same vein.
Clyde is a gentle soul. He's a wonderful person to work with. He has your back. He's very kind and giving.
On a personal level, Clyde has been a very strong supporter of mine.
I'll tell you, he's brought me a long way, and I really appreciate it, to tell you the truth.
He has helped me to step outside of my comfort zone. I'm normally a very quiet person, very humble person, and watching Clyde work within the industry as a mentor, I guess you would say, of myself, he has helped me to step forward out of my comfort zone and do things that I normally would not have done.
From the day he hired me, he helped mentor me. He helped train me in the cooperative movement and how cooperatives were supposed to function. And then he let me do my job. And he was always there and still is there when I need him for advice and counsel.
There are very few people who will unselfishly give of themselves and make a contribution of a lifetime for the benefit of so many others and not think anything of it. That's just my job. Well, that's how he sees it, but all the rest of us have benefited from it.
We had a new CEO, a lawyer, school teacher from Long Island that didn't know anything about our business. Some of us took a pull, wondered how long he'd last. Well, his name was Rick Smith, and he lasted 25 years. And he graduated only because Clyde really taught him a lot of what he knew.
Rick Smith and Clyde, I'll call it a symbiotic relationship, you know. They really work together great.
They really became an unstoppable team, and they really clicked together. Just seemed to be a great team that was destined for success.
I think Rick Smith would tell you that Clyde made him what he was.
It's been interesting to watch the relationship of Clyde and Rick. I believe it's more than just a dairy cooperative leader and the CEO. They worked so closely together for so many years that I know they have a personal relationship and a great affection between the two of them, because they've shared so many business experiences and done so much in the dairy industry together that I personally believe they're almost more family than anything else.
He really brought Rick along. It's the son he never had.
Everybody in the industry knows that Clyde and I have had a very special and unique relationship, one that has gone on for over 30 years. And when you participate in a project like this, it's been encouraged to talk about that relationship. And I know I could not speak from the heart about what Clyde has meant to me and Dairylea and the members and the industry. I couldn't do that without getting pretty emotional. And I may be chickening out. I'm not going to try. I will say this: it's been a joy. It's been an incredible journey over the last 30 years.
I think all of us, we should just be eternally grateful, thankful that we've had Clyde as a leader here for all of this time, and just wish him well.
I personally would like to thank Clyde for all the years of experience that I've had with him, all the different committees that he's asked me to serve on. I've enjoyed it immensely and personally have grown from it. And I do not regret anything that he's asked me to do.
I'm proud to consider Clyde a personal friend.
It's been an honor to get to work with Clyde and to know him, and he will leave behind a tremendous legacy in the dairy industry, not just at Dairylea, but in the entire dairy industry.
One of my favorite memories about Clyde is sometimes when we've been at dinners with Clyde and Jeanette and others, and Clyde will find something particularly funny. And as you might know about Clyde, once he starts laughing, he's not going to stop laughing. And then the look on Jeanette's face as she looks away when he won't stop laughing is priceless. They're a great couple, and it's just been a real pleasure to get to know both of them.
Give Clyde's wife Jeanette a tribute, because she, she supported Clyde wholeheartedly, and Clyde was certainly going away a lot of the time. And how he managed to operate the farm and also keep all his responsibilities, I'll never understand. But his wife Jeanette was, she's just a sweetheart, and the two of them just made a very great couple.
I'd like Clyde to know that he truly has been a wonderful person to work with. When he's gone, I'm going to miss him deeply. And I know he'll be a friend forever.
Clyde, we love you very much. We consider you a friend, and we owe a debt of gratitude to you. And on myself and others, just thank you from the bottom of our heart for all that you've done for us.
Thank you, Clyde, for your vision, your strength, your guidance, your counsel, and your belief that by having farmers work together, we can create a better outcome. Whether you knew it or not, you were giving that gift to all of us. And therefore, your legacy is going to be ongoing, because you not only were an advocate and a leader in your industry, you were also a teacher. And many of us received the lessons. Thank you.
I know, Clyde, it's tough to make changes in your life, but you've done your job. Congratulations, and enjoy the rest of your life.
Clyde, I know you've been doing this for well over 30 years, and you've poured your heart and soul into the dairy industry, and very specifically into Dairylea, and you've left a great legacy. It makes me very humble and also proud to be able to know we're going to carry on the Dairylea tradition past when you're going to be chairman and leading the organization. You've created a very strong organization and helped support us, making sure it was populated with the right employees, and we've got great membership support. I know we're going to be successful for the next 100 years of Dairylea, and many of the reasons for that success is going to be the foundation you helped build in the last over 30 years of your participation in Dairylea, so thank you very much.
I guess the one thing as I look forward, I really wish many years of happiness and contentment for Clyde and Jeanette. They deserved it, and I'm just honored to have been able to be part of this afternoon and tonight, and we'll go on from here. So to Clyde and to Jeanette, all the best.
Dairylea will be farmer-driven. We will seek to maximize net returns at the farm by preserving and enhancing milk markets and milk marketing relationships, and by providing services and programs that create real economic value.